Okay, let's continue with this one. We have w, x, y, and z. So w, x, y, and z. It's an x. So we have our parallel, our quadrilateral there. And our opposite sides then are wx is opposite of yz. And wz is opposite of xy. And our diagonals are wy and xz. So let's see if this is a parallelogram, a rectangle, a square, a rhombus, or a square. So let's start with w and x. So wx, we're going to go have the square root of 1 minus negative 4 squared plus negative 2 minus negative 3 squared. 1 plus 4 is 5, so 5 squared is 25. And negative 2 plus 3 is 1, so plus 1 squared is 1. All right, so we've got the square root of 26. So yz, we're going to do the square root of negative 3 minus 2 squared plus negative 8 minus negative 7 squared. And negative 3 minus negative 2, or minus 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. Negative 8 plus 7 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. So once again, we have the square root of 26. So it's looking hopeful that it is going to be one of these shapes. Let's go to WZ. So on WZ, we're going to take the square root of negative 3 and CW minus negative 4 squared, and then plus the square negative 8 minus negative 3 squared, and we get negative 3 plus 4 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. So once again, we have the square root of 26. So if this one is also, we're going to have something special going on here. So we're going to do xy. So we're going to have the square root of 2 minus 1 squared plus negative 7 minus negative 2 squared. 2 minus 1 is 1, and 1 squared is 1. Negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. And look at that. We've got 4 sides that are the square root of 26. So all 4 sides being equal will give us either a rhombus, or a square. To know whether it is a rhombus or a square, we're going to have to find the diagonals. So let's take a look at these diagonals here. So we've got, let me show you the points. There, maybe we can see more of it. All right, so we're going to do y, or wy. So I'm going to take the square root of 2 minus negative 4 squared plus negative 7 minus negative 3 squared. 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 squared is 36. Negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. When you take 36 and 16, you get the square root of 52. All right, let's take a look at xz. So I'm going to take the square root of negative 3 minus, and we're going to x, 1 squared plus negative 8 minus negative 2 squared. Negative 3 minus 1 squared is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 squared is 36. So we do have the square root of 52. The diagonals are also congruent. So that means that we are not going to have a rhombus. We do have a square. And let's take a look at this very last one. I'll come down so we can see that. And about there. All right, once again, let's take a look at this. We have D, E, F, and G. And our opposite sides are DE is opposite of GF. And EF is opposite of DG. And then our diagonals are DF and GE. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's start with DE and DE. So we're going to take the square root of negative 3 minus negative 5 squared plus 6 minus 9 squared. Negative 3 plus 5 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. 6 minus 9 is negative 3, and negative 3 squared is 9. So we have the square root of 13. And GF, so we're going to take the square root of negative 8 minus negative 6 squared plus 1 minus negative 2 squared. And that's going to give us negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2. Negative 2 is squared is 4. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. We once again have the square root of 13. Let's look at EF. So EF, we're going to do the square root of negative 6 minus negative 3 squared plus negative 2 minus 6, negative 2 minus 6 squared, yeah, there we go. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8. Negative 8 squared is 64. And 9 plus 64 will give us the square root of 73. So it's not going to be a square or a rhombus. If this matches, then we will have a parallelogram. So DG, we're going to take the square root of negative 8 minus negative 5 squared plus 1 minus 9 squared. Negative 8 plus 5 gives me negative 3, and negative 3 squared is 9. 1 minus 9 is negative 8. Negative 8 squared is 64. And that will give me the square root of 73. So this one is congruent. Oh, and I should have stated this one is also congruent. So we are going to have a parallelogram. And maybe that parallelogram is a rectangle. So let's find out by finding those diagonals. So our diagonals are going to be DF. So we'll have the square root of negative 6 minus negative 5 squared plus negative 2 minus 9 squared. Negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1, and negative 1 squared is 1. Negative 2 minus 9 is negative 11, and negative 11 squared is 121, giving me the square root of 122. And we have GE, so we're going to have the square root of negative 8 minus this negative 3 squared, and then add that to 1 minus 6 squared. Negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5, and negative 5 squared is 25. 1 minus 6 is negative 5, and negative 5 squared is 25. So we add those together and we get the square root of 50. These are not congruent, therefore it is not a rectangle. And so we are going to state that this is a parallelogram. All right, and now it's your turn.